Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome to the very first episode of today's Tolkien Times. I'm Alan, the man of the West. I'm also from the Prancing Pony podcast, and today's Tolkien Times is my way of bringing you a little Middle-earth every single day. Now, thanks again for your patience as I worked to solve a few technical hiccups in bringing you all this new daily Tolkien content. And thank you very much for joining me today. Now, let's go ahead and get started with our very first Mailbag Monday. Chris S. sent this one in, but I think we've had similar questions from several others over the years. When Frodo wakes up in Rivendell, he finds that whilst he was unconscious, someone or something has put the One Ring onto a chain. Who did this, and how? Did they have to wear rubber gloves? We know that at the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf refuses to hold the ring even though he does pick it up in the envelope. Am I missing something here? Well, actually, Chris, yes, you are. But it's an easy thing to miss, especially in these post-movie days. You see, Jackson's Gandalf won't so much as touch the ring in order to show us as the viewers how corrupting the ring is, how tempting it is, how overall powerful it is. But in the books, it's a little bit different. Let's go ahead and read the relevant passages. First, we'll start with the moment that Chris refers to in his question. We can find that in the chapter Many Meetings. When he addressed, Frodo found that while he slept, the ring had been hung about his neck on a new chain, light but strong. Now, I say new chain because it had already been on one. Frodo hadn't been keeping it in his pocket at all. We learned that in the Shadow of the Past, when Gandalf explains about how the ring might seem to change size, and Frodo responds, "Yes, he warned me of that in his last letter," said Frodo, "so I have always kept it on its chain." In fact, the ring was on the chain when Bilbo put it in the envelope after the long-expected party. The chain is mentioned again in Three is Company as the Black Rider approached, in the House of Tom Bombadil when Frodo takes it off the chain and hands it to Tom, and again at the Prancing Pony when he felt a desire to vanish, and finally, of course, in A Knife in the Dark when he puts on the ring. But let's go back to the Shadow of the Past for more on Gandalf touching the ring. Gandalf asks Frodo, "Give me the ring for a moment." Then we read that Frodo unfastened it and handed it slowly to the wizard. It felt suddenly very heavy, as if either it or Frodo himself was in some way reluctant for Gandalf to touch it. Gandalf held it up. It looked to be made of pure and solid gold. Then, later in that chapter, after throwing the ring into the fire, Gandalf stooped and removed the ring to the hearth with the tongs, and at once picked it up. Now, clearly, it refers to the singular ring and not to tongs, which is plural. So Gandalf uses the tongs to get the ring out of the fire. He's a wizard. He's not fireproof. And once he's placed it on the hearth, he picks it up because it was never hot. So Gandalf has touched the ring at least twice before the moment in Many Meetings, and that's just in the text. Who knows if he'd also touched it when it belonged to Bilbo? What Gandalf did do, however, was refuse to possess the ring. Touching it was altogether different. So in Rivendell, I suspect that it was Gandalf, though it could have been anyone, really. In fairness, one could thread a chain carefully through a ring without actually touching that ring. Still, it's a good question, Chris, and thank you for getting us started on Mailbag Monday here on today's Tolkien Times, even if neither of us knew that was a thing when you sent that question to Barliman way back in the day. Folks, join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Tolkien Tuesday as we open up the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, please like and subscribe on YouTube, and if you're listening on a podcast app, be sure to subscribe to make sure every episode gets downloaded to your device. Follow at Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.